Most likely you've already heard of keto, heard of veganism. As a nutritionist, I've seen a lot of different theories on what is ideal for how to fuel your body. But one of the newest ones, actually it's not even that new, I think it really caught fire last July, sometime around there. The latest one is probably the most of a mental shift when it comes to nutrition and what we already know. And it's the carnivore diet, or all meat eating diet. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not, but I have a feeling that you're going to be hearing a lot more of it. So I wanted to talk about the carnivore diet today and what it is, what it means, if there's any type of benefit behind it, and whether or not you should be doing it in today's video. Alright guys, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition and human performance. On this channel, I share science-backed and holistic information on how you can actually achieve your wellness goals and feel good again. Okay, so let's take a look at this carnivore diet. Now, in the beginning of this video, I'm going to go over what the carnivore diet is, if there's research behind it, and what the proponents of the carnivore diet are saying about it. Make sure you stay until the very end because that is where I'm going to be sharing my opinion as a nutritionist about the carnivore diet. It really bothers me when I see videos on YouTube of other nutritionists, or maybe they're not even nutritionists, talking about different protocols and not really giving the science behind it, but just bashing the person who's promoting it in the first place. I don't think that's scientific. I don't think that's helpful. So I'm going to try and reserve my own opinions until the end so that I can provide the science-backed information and so you can make a decision on it yourself. Okay, so first of all, what is the carnivore diet? It's basically where you're only eating meat, not just meat. So meat is the muscle of an animal, but they always say nose to tail. So that means literally eating the brains, the liver, the spinal cord, everything. And that's all you're eating. You aren't eating any type of plant, you're only having animal-based types of food. Now, it depends on who you're talking to when it comes to the carnivore diet on whether or not eggs or milk are involved. Usually they'll say no to dairy, but yes to eggs, but again, really depends on who you're talking to. And from what I've been able to gather, there seems to be this shift away from plants in some nutrition communities with things like the plant paradox, which I do a video on right here, and all of these people looking at the possible negative side effects of plants. In fact, I listened to a podcast interview with one of the carnivore diet proponents on the Ben Greenfield podcast, and he said that all plants are toxic. So that might be like a thing for you to hear because it's something that science has shown for so long with research on fiber and research on antioxidants and research on the longest lived people in the world, how plants have always been involved in a healthy lifestyle. Now, what the carnivore diet people are saying is that there's things like goitrogens that are in cruciferous veggies that can impair thyroid function. There's things called lectins, which again, I do talk about in the plant paradox video, but the lectins, which can cause inflammation, autoimmune disease. And their claim is that by eating animal-based products, you're getting all the nutrients that you need without the possible negative side effects of plants. Now, this statement of getting all the nutrients you need is under the assumption that fiber is unnecessary. Now, this is another huge thing that the carnivore diet proponents say, is that fiber is unnecessary. In that same podcast interview that I just mentioned, the carnivore diet proponent said that it's been found to be linked to increased diverticulitis, which is something that these little pockets that can occur within the intestines. He was saying that this applies to both soluble and insoluble fibers. So the last thing that he mentioned is how eating more of the animal-based products leads to increased brain function. There's really two different theories of how our brains as humans suddenly developed into these thinking masterful machines. And it comes down to either the omega-3/DHA theory or the cooking theory. With carnivore diet, their theory is more on the DHA side. So DHA is a vital nutrient that's needed for the brain. The carnivore diet proponents say that for improved brain function by eating the marrow of the meat and gaining more access to fish-based foods and so all animal different products that would contain DHA, that this causes us to have those higher functioning brains. The other argument is our brains suddenly got bigger as well as a result of the invention of cooking. So the cooking theory revolves around the fact that cooking allowed more calories to be available to us as humans. Our brain burns somewhere about, I think it's 25% of our daily calories. So that's a massive amount of energy that it's using every day. And cooking allowed us to gain more access to those nutrients. Where before, think about eating a salad versus having, like a baked potato. Baked potato is a lot easier to eat and you could eat more of it than a salad because one involves a lot more chewing, which means that you won't have time to eat as much and therefore not gain as much energy from it. The cooking theory says that as we develop cooking and therefore gain more energy so that we had this excess energy that could be shuttled up to our brain to be used, that made it so that our brains grew larger and bigger. So those are are the two different theories. The carnivore diet proponents suggest that the DHA theory is the one that causes our brains to be more highly functional. Now, is there science to back up this carnivore diet? The carnivore diet proponents will often bring up the Eskimos, and the Eskimos mostly eat animal-based products. And they'll always say that the Eskimos will only eat plants if they don't have real food, aka meat, available to them. Now, on the other side, for the promotion of plant food products, there's a lot of studies. There's studies on the benefits of fiber. There's studies on the benefits of antioxidants. The longest lived people in the world that have been studied all have a fairly high intake of vegetables in their diet and a lower intake of meat. So when this whole theory of the blue zones or the longest lived people were brought up, again, in this interview on the Ben Greenfield podcast, the carnivore diet proponent says that the longest lived people, which these are about 5 to 7 different countries that all show these similar traits on what they eat and how they live their lives. He says that those centenarians, those longest lived people, all have a genetic variation that makes it so that all of them would have lived long regardless of what they ate in a day. So for the carnivore diet, they say that it helps the brain because it has more DHA available. They say that plants have toxic compounds like the goitrogen and like the lectins. And they also say that you can get all of your nutrients from meat. Again, that's assuming that fiber is not a necessary nutrient. Okay, so my take on this. My first one, let's go back to those blue zones longest lived people. So in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, but looking at all those longest lived people, they'll have such a similar type of diet. You know, if it were just one community of people that lived a really long time, I could see this genetic variability theory being somewhat of a possibility. However, this is across a lot of different communities spread all across the world. One's in Costa Rica, one's in Greece, one's in Italy, one's in Japan, one's even actually in the US. And the fact that all of these have a similar type of diet, maybe not the same foods, but the same type of distribution of foods and the more plant-based emphasis of foods, it just seems like too much of a coincidence to me. It can't be that all these people are eating the same thing and also happen to have the same genetic difference that makes them more likely to live forever. Plus, there's this whole concept with genes, and which genes are expressed will change depending on your diet and environmental factors. So it could just be that because these societies have a similar diet or a similar lifestyle, that they're expressing this gene that makes them all look similar. So when it comes to that, I think that's a wash. I don't think that's a really great description of what's going on with the longest lived people. My second issue goes back to that brain theory. So how our brains developed in the first place. So remember, they said that our brains became bigger because we started eating the marrow of animals. Now, this again doesn't make sense to me because the time when our brains started to get bigger, it's too much of a coincidence that we also developed cooking. So if eating raw meat and having the marrow was the cause, it seems like we would have started doing that a lot longer before we also developed cooking. And the things that we were cooking at the time, yes, it was meat, but it was also things like tubers, things that were more calorie rich and were also plants. Now the whole fiber issue. I mean, fiber, there's so many studies on fiber being so great for us, and there's the mechanisms that can actually explain it as well. It's not just causal, but there's also mechanisms that seem to make sense. So one of them being that our fiber is feeding our good gut bacteria, and that gut bacteria is turning fiber into butyric acid, which helps to decrease our gut inflammation. So when it comes to fiber not actually being necessary, that one's hard for me to believe, honestly, because there is so much research behind it, and there isn't any research that I saw that the carnivore diet proponents were suggesting other than the fact that it's just not necessary. Okay, and then there's of course the plants are toxic argument. So that's actually true. There are goitrogens that are within things like kale and cruciferous veggies. However, most of those goitrogens are gone when you cook them. So that's why I always suggest, cooking Brussels sprouts, cooking broccoli. And even with kale, if you have some hypothyroidism issues, not having raw kale actually would be in your benefit. I mean, there's cultural reasons why we started cooking certain foods, and it's because our ancestors saw that it actually proved to be more beneficial for us as a community and for our health overall. And then of course there's lectins, which like I said, I have the whole video. I'll link it in the description as well, but I also mentioned it earlier on the plant paradox. Lectins are contained in things like beans. And when you actually properly cook beans, the way that we're supposed to and the way that we've been doing it for hundreds of years, where you soak it and then you cook it, that actually essentially gets rid of lectins. So it's not like you're actually getting exposed to very many lectins if you are cooking it properly in the first place. Granted, if you are having, like fast food types where it's in a can and you don't have to cook it yourself, then this will naturally be higher in those lectins than those that were cooked properly. But there's also this conflicting information because just recently they found that there's a lectin that's contained within mushrooms that is found to have some anti-cancer compounds. Really just focusing on these really small traits within vegetables and eliminating the fact that there's been so many positive benefits that have been associated with them, I think is short-sighted. Now, another issue I have with it is that it's really not sustainable. They talk about eating nose to tail, and I do think that if you are going to be utilizing that, that's a very good idea because you do get more of a variety, at least, of the nutrients that your body needs, and it makes it more sustainable sustainable that way, but most people don't have access to nose to tail type of meat or the high quality meat that you need in order to make this whole thing actually beneficial. Most meat that is available is conventional meat that has antibiotics and hormones, and that's not going to help with your wellness goals. Plus with the, what is it, like 7, 8, I don't even know how many billions of people there are on earth right now, it wouldn't be sustainable for even a fraction of those people to suddenly only eat meat. We wouldn't have enough meat on this earth for people to consume. On the other hand, we would have plenty more vegetables in order to feed all of the people across the earth. Now, with that in mind, should you do the carnivore diet? I don't think there's a lot of great research behind it. Some people have seen success with it, but that's also just as some people have seen success with the celery juice craze. You can actually check out the whole video I did on it right here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the carnivore diet that's helping it. There's not long-term studies on, you know, the benefits of it or if it actually works. So this is the one diet that I wouldn't necessarily recommend just because it is so difficult to find high quality meat. It's not sustainable for most people. It's already hard to prepare nice foods for yourself in general that are going to promote health and wellness in your body. And so if you were to rely on a carnivore diet and have to go out to eat, for example, you most likely wouldn't be able to get high quality meat or bone marrow or liver or heart or brain or all the other things that the carnivore diet promotes. Maybe this protocol can help some people, just as the keto diet helps people who suffer from seizures. But in general, I don't believe this is sustainable and I don't believe it's right for the general population. All right, guys, if you came across the carnivore diet because you're looking to lose weight, highly recommend that you check out this video. It goes over 10 easy strategies that you can utilize in order to lose weight without counting calories. Also, if you love the science-backed information, make sure you subscribe to my channel right here. I come out with new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.